Hi everyone and welcome to another AFTV Live. It is both my honour and pleasure to be able to introduce none other than Arsenal superfan, Mr. Dan Potts in the house. What are you saying, bro?
I'm good, man. Thank you very much. Good to see you, man. Good to be back as well.
Good to see
you. It's been a while, man.
It has, man. I'm looking forward to this. First of all, tell the people, how's it going? What have you been up to?
Good, man. Really good. I can't lie to you. I've been a nice trip away at the weekend with the family, just in Great Yarmouth, and chilled out there, and just growing my channel, mate, and doing a lot on YouTube, and trying to take that off. Really, next did his show last night, and it's going well, man. I can't lie.
Yeah. I've been catching up with your content. Always good stuff. Keep it up, bro. Yeah.
Thank you, mate.
Before we move on to more, shall we say, relevant things in the future. Let's a little bit on the past. Arsenal, Newcastle at the weekend. I know it's a couple of days removed by now, but your thoughts on the game?
A really big performance mentally for me, because maybe I'm negative going into this game, but I thought we were going to lose it. And the reasons I thought we were going to lose it were because I look at...
Well, we lost there last year.
Well, the PTSD of last year, of course, comes into it, right? But it's more than that for me, Laurie. We've been to Old Trafford and we've lost. We've been to the Etihad and we've lost. We've been to Anfield and threw away a 2-goal lead. So we're going to this fixture and I'm thinking that atmosphere is buzzing. It's electric. They're a different team than Newcastle this season. We couldn't beat the Newcastle of old. Are we going to be able to beat the Newcastle of new that have gone and spanked teams at home this season? And also the form going into this. I know we'd beaten Chelsea and it was nice to get another W on the board, but for me, I don't think we've played well enough in the last 4 games for me to have the confidence of we're going to go and beat Newcastle 2-0. So I was really impressed by the performance. I thought individually there were some exceptional talents out there. I thought that Kivior looked really comfortable. For me, looks a lot more composed and controlled than Rob Holding. Jorginho was a brave call from Mikel Arteta, because a lot of people would have thought, Partey, has he got a knock? Where is he? Hasn't been great the last few games. Jorginho's come in and had a really good game. But Martin Odegaard for me was outstanding in parts.
He was my man of the match. A lot of people went for Jorginho, but for me, goals win games. And when Odegaard pops like that and gets a train rolling like that,
Listen, he scored 15 goals this season, and I was one of his biggest critiques around goals and assists. There was no doubt in his talent, technically beautiful to watch. But for me, there was a little bit, 7 assists and 4 goals last season.
Yeah,
Is that
I remember that, because I remember me and you were talking. I don't know if it was on the Talk Is Cheap show or one of those shows where me and you were critiquing him, and there was talks about Maddison coming in. Yeah. And I think me and you were both saying, hey, listen, man, Maddison...
Well, listen, I still like Maddison a lot. I think he's a top talent. But when you compare the two this season, it's hard because different teams, and where Leicester are, where Arsenal are. But there's no denying how good he's been, man. And I think there's a stat saying that he scored 15 goals. Last time that happened was Cesc Fabregas from midfield.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, I think he's away from home. He's got the record of the 3rd all-time Premier League in a season, most away from home. So, when people say he doesn't turn up in big games, doesn't turn up away from home, that's not true, because he's just got, the 3rd best. So I've been really impressed with him this season, and I think he's really turned it on.
Yeah, to have Saka on the front.
Man. I mean, Saka, Martinelli and him getting 15 goals. That's unbelievable. And I don't even think we even had that in the Invincible season. So that's incredible. So really, really impressed with the performance, mate. And it's a massive, massive win for us now to give us a little bit of confidence going into the last 3, man.
Absolutely. I think for me, it's got to be up there with one of the performances of the season, if not the performance, given, what's at stake. And, like you said, Dan, a lot of people weren't expecting us to get anything out of that game. Now, I've got to ask you, I'm sure you've been asked many times, but very quickly, do you think there is any possibility that we could pull it off even at this late stage? By that, I mean winning the title.
Well, listen, winning against Newcastle means we have got a chance. Whether it's a realistic chance or not is another debate. I think personally, if you was to ask me what my thoughts are, I really don't see Man City dropping 2 games. I could see them potentially dropping points in 1, maybe a draw against Brighton away, or maybe even Everton away. People are saying it's going to be a tough game for them at Goodison Park after the Real Madrid fixtures. But I really do not see there being a chance of Manchester City losing a game and drawing a game. I can't see that happening, and it's unfortunate. Listen, I'm not saying that Brentford away, Brighton away and Everton away is easy, and I'm not saying that Chelsea at home is easy either. But if you was to have put money on it, I would probably say Man City are going to get a full house, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think if I'm being honest, most people would share that view. I mean, there is an outside chance, there is a mathematical chance, but City would have to drop points. And at the moment, it has to be said, even when they're not playing at their best, they're still eking out the results. I was listening to Jack Grealish talk recently, and he was saying that they just feel as a unit that they feel that they're unstoppable. And I must say that's kind of reflecting in what we're seeing at the moment. But you never know. And what the other thing I would say on that is that, okay, if we don't quite pull off the league, then we do know that Champions League football is now assured. So there is a lot to be proud of, a lot to be looking forward to optimistically for next season. And that brings me on very nicely to what I wanted to talk to you about today, because I came across a report recently that I found quite interesting, and it talked about Arsenal trimming their wage bill. So now I think they're the 6th highest club in the Premier League in terms of wages paid. And what they've also done during that time is that they've tried to focus on bringing through the younger players. And I would say that they have got a reward for that investment. Certainly on the pitch, things are looking up. It's a considerable achievement what they've achieved so far. And they're basically clearing the decks now so that they can bring in quality additions, as Mikel Arteta talks about, for next season. So it looks as though they may be ready to spend big. And that's what I wanted to talk to you today about, Dan. So what's your thoughts on that? The way they've undertaken their business this season and looking forward.
There's 3 P's that were always mentioned: plan, project, process. One thing I don't think anybody would deny is that there has been a plan at Arsenal. The debate has come in over the last 3 seasons is that plan going to work? Now, I think it's obvious and clear to see that they've brought in a young implementation of players. They've cleared out what they believe to be the toxic players and removed the culture of the Ozils, Aubameyangs, Mustafis, Kolasinac's that have all gone. Since then, you can add the likes of Bellerin and Leno and Guendouzi to that equation as well. And then what they've done is they've brought people in who they think are going to bring the mentality that they believe is right for the club moving forward. And I think when you bring a young implementation of players in, that is a bright future. And it's not for a win now team. It's not a win now mentality. They've not brought in, for example, like a Christian Eriksen who's ready to win now. They've brought in a Martin Odegaard who's one for the future. Likewise with the players that we've seen come in, a lot, the likes of Ben White and Ramsdale, etc. So I think when you look at what Mikel Arteta and Edu and the guys behind the scenes have done, the amount of praise that I think they deserve has been mostly off the pitch so far. This season, you can change that now and say, actually, on the pitch, we're starting to see some real positives now.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the last 3 years, I would suggest there's been more positives off the pitch. I like the way that they've built a connect with a fan base. I like the way that they've cleared the wage structure so that we can now look to kind of scrap it and start again, tear it up, start again. That's where they deserve credit. And I think that is always where perhaps people who have not really trusted the process, and I've been one of those, I think have given credit to them off the pitch. Stuff off the pitch, Laurie, I can't lie, I haven't been too positive over the last couple of seasons. But
no,
when
but
it comes to off of it,
that's natural. I mean, because we all want the best for the club. But let's be honest, there was the 2 8th place finishes, then the 5th. Okay, in the intervening years, we won the FA Cup. But in terms of qualifying for the Champions League and stuff like that, it's not been the most fruitful of seasons. But this season obviously is different. I mean, I just wanted to say as well that, I mean, last season, I think Arsenal spent something like close to 115 million, and that was the least of any of the top 6. But now we qualify for the Champions League. If we're going to compete on 2 fronts next season, which is obviously what the club want to do, it could be argued that they need to increase that significantly, possibly even twofold. I mean, they'll be up against the likes of, and this is financially, Man City, Chelsea, Newcastle, Man United. Maybe not so much Liverpool, but certainly those 4 clubs there. I mean, Newcastle. I mean, we all know what they're about now, and they're going to be a threat to us next season. And all the targets that we're going up against, these types of clubs will be in the same type of market for us. So there's a lot to be thought about there.
I mean, listen, the last 5 seasons, only Man United and Chelsea have spent more than Arsenal Football Club in the Premier League. So it's not been that us scrimping and saving and trying to, be out of order when it comes to, oh my God, why have we not spent 400 million here, 500 million there? Actually, you spent a lot of money, right? But unfortunately, look at what we've spent it on. Now, in the last few transfer windows, you can turn that around and say, actually, look at what we spent it on. It's been really good. So I think there's definite positives and negatives over our pre-Arteta and Kroenke era and post. I think as well, for the future, Kroenke's are now the total ownership of the club.
Yeah,
that's key for me. Absolutely key. Because I've used this term before. when you do not own your house, you only clean the windows. You don't refurbish it, right? Now it's their club.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
Now it's their club. Let's see what they do, because they've already backed Arteta in a couple of windows. I would argue they haven't backed him enough, because I still think we've been left short in most windows when it shuts. Nobody that I know has gone, we've covered all positions. Wow. Everyone's, no, what if he gets injured though? What if Saliba gets injured? Oh, he has. Now what do we do? We've never been left like that. That's what I need to see changing this summer. I need all the positions covered, because people will say, but we can't go and buy 8 players. Well, Nottingham Forest went and bought 30. Chelsea have bought like 12, you know. It can happen. I'm not saying we need to buy that many, but you can in one window be expected to buy 6 players, because believe it or not this summer just gone, the one before that, Arsenal did. They bought in Tomiyasu, Ben White, Ramsdale, Ødegaard, and then Tavares and Lokonga. They were the 6 that they bought in. So for me, I think it is realistic to have the opportunity of buying another 6 players, because now we're in the Champions League. We don't want to be squeezing into the top 4, playing the kids in the League Cup. We actually can go on all 4 fronts now and say we've got a squad of 25 players, and it doesn't matter if someone gets a knock, because someone's there to come in.
Excellent point. I mean, the article that I read seemed to suggest that Arteta obviously meets with the board on a regular basis, and him and Edu are close, as we all know, but he's made it clear that what they've done is they've cleared the decks in terms of the wage bill and, you know, getting rid of 1 or 2 players, high profile players of that. You saw Aubameyang over the years, saw Ozil, and there's bound to be more people going. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But he's already targeting apparently a centre-back, a defensive midfielder, central midfielder, and a striker. The centre-back, if speculation is to be believed, Mark Guehi's come up on the radar. I wondered what you thought about him.
Really like him. Really
Crystal
like him.
Palace,
you know, old Chelsea. Yeah, it's mad. Chelsea, everyone comes from Chelsea, don't they? And they never keep them.
At some point.
They're still playing Thiago Silva and Koulibaly. Like, it's mad. But listen, he, for me, I think he was at Swansea, played really well from loan. Chelsea, they thought, no, we're not going to be Phillies ready yet. Palace, he's been superb for me. Really good. Him and Anderson have formed a really good partnership. An England international as well. Gareth Southgate's seen that he's good enough, and he's picked him in that mould. Is he going to be an upgrade on Saliba? No. But is he going to be an upgrade on Rob Holding? I mean, without being horrible to Holding, I think I'd give him a run for his money in certain games. No, that is harsh. But listen, he's a player, Rob Holding, that's come in and been professional. But for me, has never quite made it to that level of being. I think with Holding is we all appreciate he's a good, honest pro.
But if we're going to be honest as well, we'd have to say that he's not quite at the level that we would like to see.
Absolutely.
And that is no real. I'm not denigrating the guy. It is what it is. Listen, if we are going to be challenging, as we said, on 2 fronts, major competitions like the Champions League and the Premier League next season, I think it's fair to say that Rob Holding is not quite at that level. So we are going to have to improve in that position. We've got a good partnership in Gabriel and Saliba, but as we've seen this season, an injury, and then all of a sudden...
We've got to make the decision. Do we want to go and get another right back that can overlap, or do we want to go and get or can invert, or do we want to go and get a right centre back? And I think it needs to be the right centre back for me, because we've got Tomiyasu and Ben White. Now Tomiyasu is the one for me I need to look at next season and go, are you going to get injured for the whole season again? Because if you are, then we need to go and get another right back. But we've got to give him that other season. For me, it has to be a right centre-back. It looks to me as if Kivior can come in and cover for Gabriel when he's got that knock now at that left-sided centre-back. And we also know that we've got 2 left-backs. We have not got 2, in my opinion, right centre-backs that are good enough. And I think Guehi would come and do that to cover for Saliba if he was out.
Yeah. And then you got Ben White in the right-back position. So that's nailed down. But I must admit, I'm with you on Mark Guehi. He looks good, looks strong. Apparently he reads the game very well, and he's got leadership abilities. Now that would seem to be the perfect attributes of what we want. So yeah. And then moving up from there into the midfield, central midfield and the defensive midfielder. Well, everyone's talking about Declan Rice, who I must admit I'm a fan of. Yourself?
I love him, man. Honestly, I think he's quality, and I have done for a couple of years.
Seems like the perfect fit for us, though, doesn't it?
24 years old, England international. People say, "Oh, I'm not so sure if he's good." Go and watch him against France. He was class. Absolutely outstanding. Watch him drive West Ham forward in the games they played well this season. He's been the key figure. And, you know, West Ham have been pretty poor this season, but he has not been. He's been fantastic, you know. I think
again, another one with leadership skills, captain of West Ham, seems to do a lot of talking.
And that's massive for me. Yeah. That is key for me, because when you look at leadership, you know, Gary Neville actually made a good point the other week about good professionals and leaders. And that was spot on, to be fair. And I think when you look at Ødegaard and Zinchenko, they're really good professionals and they lead by example.
Exactly. Yeah.
But are they the Patrick Vieira and Roy Keane types? I'm not so sure they are. Declan Rice, in my opinion, is more of that mould. Yeah. I think what he's done for me has shown that he has a bit of a nasty bite into him, but actually he's got a good mentality, and that's what I need to see. But for me, leadership qualities, 24 years of age, right age. West Ham might be asking for a lot of money, however, but he, for me, I think would be very interested in a move to Arsenal in the Champions League again, staying in London. It's got to happen, man.
Declan Rice seems to be a very popular choice. I must say I've spoken to a lot of fans, both in person and online, doing shows. I've not come across a single fan that said that they don't want Declan Rice at Arsenal. You know what I mean? And to all intents and purposes, it would appear that he's happy to come to Arsenal.
Yeah,
I mean, I know we're going to be in the market. Newcastle have been spoken of. You said today you'd heard about City expressing interest.
I mean, listen, Newcastle we know have got money. Arsenal will have money. Manchester United, particularly with a new takeover, will have money. Manchester City's come up today that I've heard that they are looking at potentially allowing West Ham to talk to Calvin Phillips to go the other way. 80 million plus Calvin Phillips they're talking about. So
you told me about that, and sorry to interrupt.
No, go on, mate.
Yeah, you told me about that, and straight away I said to myself, you know what, that kind of makes sense. You're West Ham, that makes sense, isn't it? Because Calvin Phillips, although he's not figured much at all, so he got a minute the other day.
He's got to keep fit, man, because he ain't a bad player.
Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, another England international, no less. But yeah, so if you're West Ham and you let Declan Rice go, Calvin Phillips coming in, that is a good look. So that is going to be a challenge.
Yeah, it's key, and I think what West Ham know is that he's going to go, whether it's this season, next season, whatever. But they do not need to sell him for £30 million. They can ask for a decent price, and when the market, people will say 120 million is crazy. It is absolutely crazy money. But 100 million for Anthony, 100 million for Grealish, 100 for Lukaku, 72 for Pepe, 90 for Havertz, 95 for Sancho. Yeah, it's a crazy market. So of course they're going to ask for 120. They know they're not going to get that, but they're not going to say, oh, we're going to let Declan Rice go if 50 million is about what we believe. They're going to go treble that. So of course he will end up, I believe, going probably this window somewhere for around 80 to 85, rising potentially 100. But for me, I think he's about 85 million in this market, but West Ham will want more.
For the first time on the show today, I'm going to disagree with you, Dan. I reckon you're looking more about 100. You know what I mean?
Listen, I think
they'll ask for 120. I think that because now we know that City and Newcastle are probably going to be in the running. That's going to up the ante a bit, don't you think?
They can up it to what they want. And the thing is, we know Chelsea, if they really wanted Declan Rice, will pay 120 because they've done it with Enzo Fernandez, right? I think Newcastle, although they haven't spent big, would be very interested in Declan Rice, because Declan Rice at 24, Newcastle in the next 5 years will be winning big things. They will, because Man City and Chelsea have done exactly what they've done, right? They've been there and done it. So that wouldn't be a poor move for him. They're in the Champions League, it seems, as well, Newcastle. So Man United as well, likewise, look like they're going to be a Champions League club, potentially could slip out, but it looks like it would. New ownership, he might look at that and go, oh, I fancy sitting next to Casemiro. Looks at Arsenal, we're in London, is surrounded by players he knows and plays with in England, like the Sakas and Ben Whites and Ramsdales of this world, sitting next to Thomas Partey, looking at the Ødegaard and Jesus and Zinchenko's, might be like looking at that.
And a team that's going to places. I mean, like
bright
I said,
future, I think.
This is a point that I was making to a number of people, both in the AFTV setup and to fans on a wider perspective. I was saying it's very important that even if we don't win the league, we finish strong, so that come the end of the season, we can present ourselves as a strong package to the likes of Declan Rice and people like that. Say, look, man, come, it's an enterprising project. Look, we finished second, we fell just short. However, we believe that guys like you coming on board, you can take us to that next level. So I think,
listen, they've said Champions League football. I actually, one of my unpopular opinions is I don't think Champions League football always secures the best players, because Casemiro went to Manchester United. they weren't in the Champions League.
That's true.
So sometimes it's about your heritage, sometimes it's about your history, sometimes it's about your fan base being a big club. For me, we have signed some really good players being out of the Champions League. Thomas Partey, Aubameyang, Lacazette, they all came to the, Kieran Tierney, Gabriel, all of these players that are at Arsenal right now that everyone's saying can win a title. We ain't been in the Champions League with them. So we've built a good squad around without being in the Champions League. Where I think Declan Rice knows is, in my opinion, Harry Kane is going to come into this mix, and not because it's got anything to do with Declan Rice, but he will look at what Harry Kane has not done and think, do I want to be that? I could stay at West Ham for another 2 seasons. I can extend my contract, which is an option they've got, and I could be at 26 and then decide to walk on a free. But is that going to be the best for Declan Rice, or has he already given his service to West Ham and believes now at this age where he's at his peak, he can go and do things with Manchester City or Arsenal? And I think that's what he'll decide.
Another midfielder, I've got to ask you, that's come onto the radar. Well, we did make a move for him earlier in the season, got pushed back, but there's a lot of talk that we'll go back in for him in the summer. Moses Caicedo from Brighton. Thoughts on that?
Again, I looked a lot of this player before we signed him, because when Bissouma went, I thought, what are they going to do? Because Brighton are good at replacing players, Laurie. Like, really good. And I know a Brighton fan, Maz, really well, who comes on my channel, and he sort of said, this kid's quality, mate. Absolute quality. Then we were linked with him, and I'm going, man, are we going to get him? We're going to get him. And it looked like we were going to at one stage. And he said, if you do want him, it's going to be like 70 million in this window. You have to come back in the summer if you want him for cheaper. So I started watching him in every single game. He is incredible, mate. He is absolutely superb. And I would go as far to say that at 21 years old, I think he is now, his ceiling's probably higher than Declan Rice, if I'm honest with you. He can play in both positions like Declan Rice can. He was playing at right back the other day. So I love his versatility, I really like the player. And I think.
And I'll tell you what else I liked about Caicedo as well, is the fact that when we didn't sign him, that would have been an obvious disappointment to him, even if he didn't say so publicly. But he's got his head down, and apparently he's maintained his levels. And there's not been any drop-off. So that's a good sign. That shows that's a guy that's very focused, and he's in the right headspace. Yeah,
I've been impressed by that professionalism as well, because when you get told that you've got interest with a club that's going for the title, when he comes out and makes that statement, who's clearly he's been advised by someone pretty poorly there to do that in the first place, but when you come back, get your head down and play the way he did in that final, by the way, in the FA Cup, he was incredible. He was absolutely incredible. So, but Laurie, we could go for both.
Well, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. Should we go for both? I mean, as I said, next season we'll be pursuing big competitions, the Premier League and the Champions League. If you're going to do that, you need quality. And, why not? Whilst we're talking about midfield, another central midfielder that we've been linked with, I don't know if it's at the same level as Declan Rice's Caicedo, but he's another Brighton lad, McAllister.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've heard the rumours.
Listen, I've heard the rumours. I'm hearing that Liverpool are more likely to go with McAllister, and he sees from what they're saying that kind of position is more available at Liverpool, because Ødegaard plays in that type of position that Alexis McAllister does. But listen, if we get 3 of those players, we've got to be laughing. I would argue to say that we have a really good midfield trio, but a poor midfield trio backup. Jorginho and El Neni, Lokonga, Fabio Vieira. I'm not feeling any of those, if I'm honest with you, mate. So
you've made that clear in the past.
No, I'm saying, so if we're looking at Caicedo, Rice, and say Mason Mount or Maddison or Alexis McAllister or somebody like that that's going to come in, that's all going to be upgrades on what we've got, and that's what we need. And we don't need just a little bit better. We need they could play first team football, because Rice and Caicedo could get into that first team if they wanted to, and likewise Alexis McAllister could try and force somebody out. They're the sort of signings you want. You don't want someone like Fabio Vieira who's going to come in, need time, needs a full season again. No, I want people that are ready now in this summer. That's what we need, man.
Yeah, I've got to say, talking of Fabio Vieira, I've got to say, and I tried to give him as much leverage as I could. It's been a little bit underwhelming, hasn't it? It's starting to look like it's not going to work out. I don't want to, throw shade, but he's had a few opportunities this season. He's played well in patches, but he's not been consistent. It may well be that they might have to look further afield. I hope I'm not being too harsh on the guy.
No, you're not. Lokonga and Tavares vibes for me. Come in, hasn't really worked. Sometimes they don't. A lot of money 38 million, 35 million, was it?
Yeah, 30. Yeah, I think it's 35. Yeah.
It's very, very disappointing. I looked at him in a couple of games and I thought, I like some of your touches, but I worry for you.
He looks a little lightweight.
Lightweight, very invisible in games, goes missing. I saw him at
How
Southampton.
can you be very invisible? You're invisible.
Well, yeah, I'm saying invisible in games. But listen, I feel like it's one we might just have to take an L on. Some are saying it's too early, give him time. The eye test shows to me that there's something not right there in that player. But I could be wrong. Like maybe you loan him out in Spain or you loan him out in England to a club that he's going to play first team football and see what you get. He's got an eye for a pass.
Or you might have to cash in, man, if you get a decent offer in the summer.
And do you know what? That's one thing, actually, I'll give Arteta credit for. If you don't fit in, and even if he's the signing, they get rid. Runnison, yeah, he ain't worked. Goodbye. Lokonga looks like they're going to do the same. Tavares looks like they're going to do the same. They've done the same with Willian. Do you know what I mean? They come in, they weren't like they were there for 5 years and come on, get rid. Do you remember how many years we've had? Kolasinac, how's he still here? Like Mustafi again, what? Like they've just gone, get rid. Don't matter if you're going to cut your losses, just get rid of him.
Yeah, I'll give that to him. He's definitely got a ruthless streak. We saw that with the Bamiyang situation and with the Ozil situation. So, yeah, got to give him credit for that. When there's decisions to be made, if he feels it's in the interest of the club, he will make them. Now, I just want to, we're going to talk, I mean, you spoke about a few players potentially going out. We are going to look at that in a minute. But the last position that's been kind of earmarked for somebody to come in is the striker position. And indeed, I think we had a super chat from somebody. Yeah, it was Babs. He says we need a consistent and certified striker, and I do agree with that, because as much as I love Jesus and as much as I admire what he's done for the club and what he brings to the table, we also have to be, if we're going to be honest, which we like to be on this show, we have to say that Jesus, for all the talents and attributes that he has, he's not what I call a prolific striker. He's not that sniper. He's not that hitman. And sometimes we can also be a little, how can I put it, predictable, repetitive in what we do. Now, I'm going to say straight off the bat, I'd love us to move for someone like a Ivan Toney this summer. That would be, you know what I mean, my go-to person if we can tempt him away from Brentford. Apparently, he's let it be known that he would like to play for a club that's in the Champions League. And we know about his problems with the betting stuff. It might be a good time to go for him. What do you think, striker-wise? And is there anyone else that you've seen as well?
We definitely need one. Going to be interesting about what we do with the current striker situation. And what I mean by that is not Jesus and Trossard. We know they're going to be in the club. Eddie Nketiah and Balogun is going to be interesting for me. And that will then decide what happens in terms of who we bring in. I think personally, Ivan Toney is probably my number one. Tell a lie, my number one's Victor Osimhen, but I can't see that happening. No. I think he's gonna go elsewhere, and he's gonna be a lot of money. And also, you've got then Jesus and Osimhen. You know, one of them is going to become unhappy potentially, which I wouldn't mind because that's what strong squads are. But I can't see that one happening. There's two for me, Laurie. The first one is Ivan Toney. A lot of people will say that because of the betting scandal, when he's going to be out for a very long time, that it wouldn't be a wise move. I think he's 26 or 27, so he's not young, but he's also not old. So if he was banned for a lengthy time, then it would be like, let's say, 9 months. At least he could come back towards the end of the season. He's your player. The other one that I've always liked and felt was criminally underrated at his Premier League proven is Tammy Abraham. There's a lot of reports coming out of Roma that he would be willing to come back to the Premier League. They would be willing to sell him for around the £40 million mark. I think that would be a wise move if we don't go for Toney, for the pure fact that he's a different profiled striker that has aerial threat, that has hold-up play, that has Olivier Giroud kind of attributes about him. I quite like the player. He's English as well. Yeah. He's a massive gooner. I know that for a fact. Massive gooner, which always helps.
Yeah, that does help.
And I think that would be a wise move, one of those two, yeah.
Yeah, I see the merits in that, and obviously as well, if you get Tammy, what is he, 6'5"?
Yeah,
I mean, then you put balls into the box, then you would imagine he's going to do quite well. Although when he was at Chelsea, I remember chatting to a Chelsea guy there, and they were saying that he's not as good in the air as you think he is, or as he should be. But nevertheless, he, he's done well at Roma. He's a good player. He's on the fringes of England as well. Listen, man, I think he would be a good addition. But I've got to say, Toney would be my man for a number of reasons. For me, he's all-round striker, man.
I agree.
All-round striker, can do a little bit of everything. He's got pace, he's got strength. He can finish, as we all know. Takes penalties. He seems to have a very good temperament. And there's something about him that I like, man. I think he
Same.
would bring a certain je ne sais quoi to our side that I think,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He'd be the number one for me.
Yeah,
He would be the number one for me. And, you know, I think I always look at a plan A and a plan B. I wish Arsenal would sometimes. But for me, you go for someone like Tony. If it's not going to happen, then you look at Abraham. Another guy that's been mentioned of late as a talent as the Atalanta striker, Rasmus Haaland.
Okay.
Denmark centre forward. It's not Haaland, by the way.
It's not the pound shot.
He's the Poundland version. But yeah, he's been doing really well. I think it's something like 8 and 10 up to Denmark.
From Denmark?
Yeah. Internationally, he's scored a lot of goals, and he's looking good for Atalanta. High seeding. I think he's only 20 years old. If we're looking at another young striker, I'm not sure we would if we've got the Balogun and Eddie situation still. But yeah, that would be another option that apparently is linked.
Let's have a look at what some of the people in the comments are saying. Some of them are not having Tammy. I'll tell you that now. Rasmus is proper quality. Evan Ferguson, someone suggested.
I've been impressed with him at Brighton. We can't nick all their players. Though, right?
Yeah, that's right. Someone's comparing Tammy Abraham here to Danny Welbeck. Not sure what to mean about that. Let's give Balogun a chance. We'll blow up like Martinelli. Balogun's done well, hasn't he?
Yes. Yes. And, you know, listen, Balogun is, in my opinion, if you wanted to ask me what I would do with Balogun, if he's happy with this, he might want to go and get first team football. I'd loan him into England and see what he does in the Premier League, because in France, Pepe scored 29 goals or whatever it was. So he's now got around about that and looks really good. He's got, I think it's like 15 or 20 goals he's got now, something mad like that. So for me, you need to look at what he can do in England. I like the player and always have. Always thought he was good at youth level and then come through and has done well on loan. But it's about what he does for me in an England Premier League team. That's what I'd like to see. Okay.
Would you revisit the Vlahovic situation?
I think that one's kind of done now.
We were linked with him quite heavily for a while, and then he decided he didn't want to come to us. Has that ship sailed, do you think?
I think so. Do you remember when we were linked with like Higuain for ages?
Yeah, I do.
Like Husamawa and Jan Munvia, Julian Draxler, Salaman Kalu.
Every season we
have this one, you know. I just hope it ain't going to be another one of those with some of the names you mentioned previously. But I think Vlahovic, Osimhen is my number one, 100%. Like, he would be my number one, but I don't see it as realistic because he will cost about 80 to 90 million, and he's a beast, by the way. And I think that Mikel Arteta sees Gabriel Jesus as the number 9, and he ain't going to come and sit on the bench. No. Maybe a Man United if Kane doesn't go. That's where I could see. Or do you know what? Chelsea might come in and say, there's another 100 million. So, yeah, I can't
Somebody
see
in the comments actually suggested Harry Kane, but I think they're winding us up because he's definitely going to come to us. Definitely not going to come to us. Moving back to the midfield, a super chat here from Elijah Reyes. Thank you very much, Elijah. He said, thoughts on Onana, Everton, for the midfield?
Impressed, if I'm honest. Impressed. We were linked with him.
We were.
I think West Ham, Everton and Arsenal were linked with Onana. And it looked like he was going to go at West Ham at one stage, then decided to go to Everton. And I thought, let's take a look at this player. I always like to look at players when Arsenal were linked with him. I've been impressed. I think he's got the physical attributes. He's got the presence. He seems to have enough control on the football to play that position. I don't look at that signing and think, God, that would be shocking. He's better than Lokonga. He's better than El Neni. He's better than Jorginho. Would it excite me like Caicedo or Rice? No. But it's not, for me, it's not one of those, if you haven't got the money for Rice or Caicedo, then you go down to that option. If that's where we're at, I'll be disappointed because I feel like we need to be going for those two names. But a good player. I like him. Can't lie.
Somebody has mentioned a player here who you previously expressed your admiration for. Shax, he says, let's get Maddison for cheap. So presumably Shax's thinking that Leicester are going to get relegated and Maddison will be out the door.
I would love that, mate. I'm
even with Odegaard firmly established?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And I'll tell you why, because if for whatever reason Odegaard gets a knock, my best option at the moment is probably Smith Rowe, because Fabio Vieira doesn't cut it for me. If we've got Maddison as well, and you can potentially, if you want to go in the game more attacking and play one of your DMs and then Odegaard and then Maddison, that for me is 2 attacking 8s would be amazing in parts of the game. Last half hour of the game, you need a goal, you're bringing on those players. Would Maddison want to come and fight for a place of Odegaard? I'd probably suggest no. I think Liverpool, Manchester United, Spurs, Newcastle will all be options that he'd probably prefer due to the fact that he knows he's playing first team football. But if we could get Maddison for 35 to 45 million because Leicester have gone down, that's a steal for me.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. No, that's a point well made, bro. Yeah. See, this is why we got you on the show. Right. So we spoke about a lot of players potentially coming in. We spoke about areas where we're going to need to strengthen, areas that the manager apparently has earmarked that he needs to go for in summer. Let's have a look at some of the players who might potentially go out, because let's face it, if we are going to bring players in, then it follows that some people are going to have to go out. So I made a little list there of players who are going to go out. And whilst we're discussing, there may be other names you want to bring out as well, but the likes of Pepe, Balogun, Maitland-Niles, Sambi Lokonga, Cedric, Nuno Tavares, Marquinhos, you mentioned there, Emil Smith-Rowe, and even we spoke about this off air, but there's potential that the likes of Tierney and Xhaka may go. Your thoughts on that? I mean, I should have added to that list Fabio Vieira, because
there's a lot there. It's mad, isn't it? How many players that we still got that we could still look to sell? And I think people forget that if you do look at 200 million, let's say, you can recoup some of that. You're not going to recoup all 200 million, but you can get a big chunk of that from some of the players, even if they're 20 million a piece, some of them, you know. Now Pepe's got to go for me. I'm a fan, to be honest, of him. I'm not one of those massive critics. I stuck up for him. I thought that the numbers wise were there. He used to come on and create. He was never going to take us to the next level. At the time, he was better than Reece Nelson. He wasn't as good as Bukayo Saka, and that's been proven. He needs to go. I think when you look at Balogun, that needs to be, do you want to come here and fight for your place? Are you happy to wait another season and go on loan in England? Or do you want to go and play first team football? If the answer is I need to go and play first team football, he's going to go. Now, the good thing about that is Arsenal can recoup some money for him, because he's going to be good money, because he's just proven that he can score goals. Eddie Nketiah is another one. If we are going to bring another centre forward, for me, we need to look at the future of. I know he's just signed a new contract, but that means nothing. For me, I think Arteta likes him and will keep him, but there's potential for a team might come in for 10, 15 million pounds, and that might be tempting.
Would you take it?
Yeah, I would. I would. You know, if you said to me now, look, you've got to get rid of Eddie, but Tony's coming in, I'm going to say, let's get rid of Eddie then. Maitland-Niles, we need to try and get money for. It was actually a silly deal not to sell him to Wolves for 15 million a few seasons ago. I remember we did the same with Kieran Gibbs to West Brom. They said they offered like 12 million and we said no, and then we sold him to them for 7. I mean, what, the following season? Madness. So Maitland-Niles, I think.
Although sometimes there may be extenuating circumstances why you couldn't have let that player go at that particular time.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, Maitland-Niles, you know, previously I've been an admirer, and I still am. I think he's a good player. Not sure if this move to Southampton was going to work out the way you wanted it to. So that might.
Well, he's gone on loan to West Brom and Southampton. They both got relegated as a right back. It don't look good for him.
So it's not very marketable in terms of, you know, his own personal situation. However, I do think there's a talent there, but I think he's another one of those. The ship has now sailed.
Yeah.
Him, Sambi, Cedric, even Nuno, Marquinhos. Guys like that.
I think those players for me, I can't see them making it long term. Reece Nelson is another one I think that.
Yeah, I was going to say about Reece, because when he scored that magnificent goal against Bournemouth, and then in the aftermath of that, people were saying, no, we cannot afford to let this guy go. I mean, he come up through the Hell End project. He's been at the club since he was 8. Apparently a child prodigy when he came to the club, had injuries, been out on loan. He's featured at different points this season. To be fair, he's done well, but we're also hearing that he's set to turn down a new deal at the club. So would you be saddened to see him go, or do you think?
I mean, I like to see
as the ship sailed, or what?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I like to see the young Hellwind boys do well. Of course I do. He's gone on loan a couple of times and he hasn't set the world alight. He did really well at Hoffenheim for the first 6-7 games and then couldn't get back into the side for Feyenoord. Never set the world alight. He did get to the final of the Conference League, but other than that, didn't really do much for them to want to be interested in signing him. And I think there's a couple of Premier League clubs sniffing around him, Crystal Palace being one. Maybe that's the sort of move he needs to try and get some first team football. If Wilfried Zaha is going to be going, that could be a position for him to come in, although they have got Elise and Eze. So for me, I think that it's probably sell for Reece Nelson. I'll never forget that moment this season. It was outstanding, but I don't think that's enough to give him a 5-year deal.
Yeah, in this brutally harsh world that we inhabit when it comes to football, I think you're probably right. Well, I'd like to see him stay, but I do agree that, you know, if you're looking at it things logically, And especially if you're bringing in the types of players that we've just been speaking about.
Of course.
As I said, you've got to make room. You've got to try and raise funds from elsewhere. So he could be one of those to fall on his sword, unfortunately. Well, when I say fall on his sword, he apparently has expressed a desire to move on for the benefit of his career, which I totally understand. You mentioned Eddie. Yeah. Kieran Tierney, that's an interesting one because I'm a big fan of Kieran Tierney.
Yeah,
I mean,
so am I.
anybody who watched our watch along last Sunday will say that I was advocating for him to start against Newcastle, and I couldn't quite understand why he wasn't given a starting berth. However, he did come on. It's fair to say that Zinchenko was not at his best. Tierney came on and I thought he was excellent, and I thought the performance that he gave vindicated why people like me, and I know you're a big fan of his as well, wanted him to start. So I would be desperate for him to stay, but I could understand he might want to leave. I'm hearing that Newcastle are sniffing around. He might well be interested in that project. What's your view on Kieran Tierney?
One of my favourite players. Always been a fan of this lad. And I feel like when you look at off the pitch, he epitomises everything that I want to see in an Arsenal player. In terms of his leadership skills, his professionalism, his mentality, the fact that he wants to win because he knows what it's like. When you get somebody from Celtic, they know what it's like to win. Now, people can laugh at the Scottish League all they want, and I do it all the time. But Celtic and Rangers, you don't lose. You do not lose. Trust me, you do not lose. You have that instilled in you. So, for me, one that I want to see stay. I'm quite surprised with the Arsenal fan base that just want to get rid and see you later, because that will cost 40 million to replace, in my opinion, of someone of that ilk. And if we're not getting 40 million bids, I'd keep him. We need two left backs. He's the only one that can defend out of the two, in my opinion. I like Zinchenko on the ball, but
you're not a big fan of this inverted stuff, then?
Embarrassingly bad defensively. Really good on the ball. Inverted works perfect for Zinchenko, not for Tierney. He can't defend. It is embarrassing. You know, Trent Alexander.
I think he can defend, but I think it's clear to me anyway, and to you, and we've spoken about this off air, that Tierney is infinitely the better defender.
Oh, like,
and I'm old school, and I know we spoke about this. For me, you do what it says on the tin first and foremost. The inverted stuff is great, but at the end of the day, man, you need a strong defence. And to me, Arsenal are a more robust team defensively when Tierney's in the side. I've got to say that.
And I agree with you. And I think that we've missed out opportunities of trying to play Kieran Tierney at games this season. I think he's done that with a couple of players. Trossard's another one. But, you know, if I said to you, got this striker, Laurie, can he score goals? No. Would you go, oh, I love him then? Have you have this left back? Can he defend? Oh, no, awful. What we coming here for then? What's he playing here for? Now, I understand that in the system he's actually been fantastic, Zinchenko, and he's a big reason as to why we are where we are on the ball. Technically gifted, looks fantastic when he's on the ball. But defensively, he's been caught out for 4 or 5 games now, and he's still playing every single game. For me, we need to be looking at keeping Kieran Tierney for that exact reason. And then what will happen is, we'll sell Kieran Tierney, and Zinchenko will get a long-term injury. And then what do we do? Tommy Yasu will have to come in there. Another guy who's made of glass and can't keep fit. Do you know what I mean? So it's difficult. And, you know, the last thing I'll say on this, if Kieran Tierney wants to go, he has to go. We can't keep him if he's not happy. And I don't think he is happy. I think he wants first-team football.
Yeah, I agree.
Newcastle would be a brilliant signing for him. A brilliant place for him to grow, I think. So, yeah. And if he goes, fair play to him. I'm not going to sit there and start hating on him because he's been ultimate professional for me.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I mean, listen, we're not denigrating Zinchenko. You just highlighted it there, what he brings to the team. And we're not saying he's rubbish defensively. Well, I'm not anyway. Maybe Dan did, but I'm not. But what I am saying is, to me, Tierney is a better defender. There's no doubt in my mind that Tierney is the better defender of the two, and I would love to keep him. But I can understand if Tierney, Scottish international, senior player, would want to move on to pastures new. And if, let's be honest, if Newcastle do approach him, he's going to look at that project and think, wow, that's if I'm going to leave Arsenal, somewhere like Newcastle might be the place to go. Going back to the midfield again, super chat here from Ollie says, what about Tielemans?
Yeah, free transfer, a player I like. But if it prevents us from getting Caicedo or Rice, then I would go with Caicedo and Rice.
Yeah, I think Caicedo.
He's the cheap option, isn't he? Tielemans. He's the cheap option. A good player. and one who I think has legs. I think has a lot more defensive attributes than people give him credit for. I don't think he's one that sits up there like Maddison. He does do a lot of work rate. The only thing about Tielemans, 70-minute mark, he starts to legs go a bit with Tielemans, I've noticed. But I've always liked him, and I tell you what, he can hit a ball. He scores some absolute bangers.
Good football. Bell's in international as well. Akil Hunt, super chat. Thanks very much, bro. He says Ollie Watkins has been class. Could be a catch.
Yeah, I like Ollie Watkins. Another gooner. Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney were the two I wanted a few seasons ago. Obviously, both come from Brentford as well. Funny enough, I feel like with Ollie Watkins, as much as he has been on fire, and big up Unai Emery's got the best out of him, by the way. I feel like he does miss a lot of chances as well. I mean, Jesus does that, to be fair, but he wouldn't be my number one.
Yeah, he wouldn't be my number one, but he is a good player.
Yeah, he is.
Definitely. Right, okay, then we spoke about players moving out possibly. We spoke about this guy before. We're trying to be respectful of him. Rob Holding. I can't see Rob Holding sticking around too long if we are going to be challenging on those fronts we spoke about, namely the Champions League and the Premier League next season. I'm not sure he's up to that level. Dan, do you agree?
I do agree. He's been at the club for 7 years. He's been a great servant. He's been ultimate professional. He's been happy to be around the squad. He's always given 110%. I like players like that who always give 110%. But sometimes their 110% isn't good enough for the Arsenal. And I think if you were at Leeds or Leicester or Everton right now and Rob Holding was your centre half, would they say he's just what we need? We need to get him in. I'm not sure that they would. I think they would probably look at some of their defenders and say that they're either on par or better than Rob Holding. So I think that tells you all you need to know about his time at Arsenal. Now, if he wants to stay and be a part of the squad and be our fifth choice, I'm not going to cry about it. What I don't want is him coming in again for every single time. Because let's be real, I don't want this to come across as harsh on Rob Holding. Because individually, it might not be his fault that we haven't won the title, and it weren't his fault individually. Some would say that we bottled top four last season, but he's came in at the same period of time in 2 seasons, and we've bottled top four.
Are you saying he's the common denominator?
Potentially he is. Potentially he is. Now, a lot of people will say that's out of order, and perhaps it is a little bit harsh because individually, I don't think Rob Holding's been absolute shambles. But it does.
It's levels, I mean.
It's one, it's levels, and two, Laurie, it actually affects the other players around you when somebody is a weak link.
Yeah, the balance.
Because you have to support that guy. So Partey's dropped off. Why is that? You know, why is Partey dropped off? So for me, I think it has to be very, very... You have to look at it seriously and say, is Rob Holding the guy that we want coming in if Saliba's injured? And I think most Arsenal fans are saying no, bro.
Right. Okay. And the last one that I feel I need to mention because he's come into focus in recent days, apparently attracting interest from Bayer Leverkusen. Granit Xhaka has had an excellent season this season. However, he may look at it if Arsenal are going to be in the running for the likes of Declan Rice and Caicedo and even McAllister. Granit Xhaka might be looking at that and thinking, you know what, I'm not going to stick around on the bench at this stage of my career, especially when I've had the season that I've had. Do you think that Arsenal might be willing to let him go?
Yeah, I agree with you. If the likes of Caicedo and Rice are seriously coming into Arsenal, there won't be a place for Granit Xhaka in the first team. And I don't think Granit Xhaka at 30 years old wants to stay at Arsenal and just be a bench warmer.
No.
And I will, give him all the credit in the world for his last 2 seasons at Arsenal, which have both been very good, this one in particular. But at 8 years or 7 years at the club to have 1.5 good seasons...
you sound like Curtis when you say that.
Well, it's fair. Me and Curtis are quite similar, actually. I'd say me, Curtis, and Turkish have quite similar.
Yeah. I would say you do as well. No, you've been quite forthright in your assessments of Xhaka. I mean, I've been an advocate for him, but even I would have to accept that. Listen, he's getting on a bit as a player. In fact, I know for a fact he's doing his coaching badges. So he's obviously looking to the future. And I would say that if Arsenal do get the likes of Caicedo, Declan Rice, McAllister and people like that, he will definitely be thinking, you know what, it's probably time for me to move on because he's still got a few years left at the top.
Course.
He's a Swiss international.
He's got another move in him.
Yeah,
he's got another big move in him as well.
That's
The
short version.
You know, Leverkusen people might not think it's a big move, but for Granit Xhaka, he's not going to go to Real Madrid, is he, or Bayern Munich? So for me, he's got one more move left in him, and I think it could be this.
And he'll want to go somewhere where he's playing on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So he's not
and he knows the German league, of course.
Yeah,
Mönchengladbach days.
Yeah, yeah. And the manager there, Xabi Alonso, is doing a very good job.
Highly rated.
One as so he probably think, go and play for a guy like that can only enhance my career. So right, okay. So we spoke then about.
Did you know Xabi Alonso is Mikel Arteta's best friend? Did you know that?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't know that, but I know that they're good friends. I didn't know they were best friends, but it kind of
really,
makes sense.
really close. Like,
really?
I think they're was that Sociedad together or somewhere like that, and they were just really close growing up. It was more growing up, I think, but they definitely played together, I think.
So is he going to do for Xabi Alonso
there you go.
what Pep did for him?
I wonder if that is a link there. Is that something, Granit Xhaka's done me good in a bad time. You're now coming up to that next level. Take him. It could be that. You never know.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, then. So, we're wrapping up now. Listen, man. What you said there makes a lot of sense. And I do agree with you about all those guys, Gay, Declan Rice, Caicedo, McAllister, Ivan Toney. And I think that spine there, centre-back, midfield, striker, are areas that we definitely need to improve on. And we have to improve on if we're going to challenge on those two fronts next season. I mean, sometimes you can be a victim of your own success. I mean, now that we've got this far this season, even if we don't quite get it across the line, we look forward to next season with a lot of optimism. So, thanks, bro. Just in closing, though, I've got to ask you, big game coming up this weekend. Arsenal at home to Brighton. We spoke about some of their players at length. But, massive game. What's your thoughts on the game? Just briefly, because,
of course. I think this is going to be a difficult one for the pure fact that they are a bit of a bogey side at home.
Yes.
I can't remember the last time we've beaten them. They beat us in the League Cup this year. Last season was a disaster. The season before that was a disaster. And under different managers as well now. De Zerbi, Graham Potter.
I like De Zerbi.
I like De Zerbi. And this is going to be difficult. The only thing I will say is they've just got absolutely battered by Everton. Now, that could be a good thing or a bad thing because they're going to want to bounce back from that. And they are still going. We've got to remember, Brighton, for a European place. They're not on the beach. So this is going to be difficult. And it's a side that play out from the back, probably as good as Man City, if not better. They're very, very good on the ball. So I think this one will be tough, but I do fancy us to get over the line. And that performance against Newcastle and the Chelsea one, in fact, has filled me with a little bit of confidence and instilled more of belief. Now, it might be frustrating because pressure's kind of off now. Pressure's more on Man City. But for me, I fancy us to nick it.
Yeah, I think you could be right. Although I do agree with you, it's going to be a very tough game. I was interested to note that in the initial aftermath of them getting smoked by Everton, which, let's face it, surprised everybody, De Zerbi was very quick to come out and say, listen, what you saw tonight was not the real Brighton. Against Arsenal, you'll see the real Brighton. And I thought, oh, that's ominous. Also, and let's face it, you've got to take that into account, the fact that those players that we spoke about so eloquently,
of course,
Caicedo, McAllister and people like that, even the likes of Danny Welbeck, they'll be coming to the Emirates with something to prove.
Yeah, they will.
So that will make it, a difficult game for sure.
And there's a lot of teams, looking at these players right now. Caicedo, McAllister, Mitoma, someone else we haven't mentioned,
very good
being
player.
Fantastic. And they've got players at the back, Brighton, that have done well. Solly March is a guy that doesn't get mentioned in midfield as well.
I like Lewis Dunk as well.
Lewis Dunk, Estupinian at left back is looking very well. Veltman, I think, has been really good this season. So, yeah, man. And we mentioned
very well
Ferguson
managed. We did.
Well.
Yeah,
Ferguson's a good player. So, this is a tough side, man. It really is.
Yeah, and we go at 4:30, and that's after Man City go to Everton. We'll be hoping Everton can do us a
praying,
favour.
man. Just anything to try and take off of them.
Although if they play like they did against Brighton, they might have half a chance. Because
Sean Dyche is going to install some fight into them now, understandably so, and they need to because they need to stay up. But at Goodison Park, it is a hard place, as we found out.
Definitely.
We lost there, and Everton actually drew to City at the Etihad earlier in the season. Now, I know they weren't firing on all cylinders, but they're a team that are difficult to break down when they want to be. Sean Dyche installs those tactics, and it's hard to beat them 4 or 5-0. But City have got the ability to do that, man. They've got the quality.
Yeah. Let's go for it, man. Listen, I want Arsenal to win this weekend, obviously, and I think they can do. I would love us to push it to the last day if we can. I mean, I accept that City are favourites, but whilst there's an outside chance that we can do it, I'm still going to keep believing. So let's hope we get the win. I think we can win a very tight game, 2-1, and like I said, let's push it to the last day as much as we can.
I'm with you, 2-1. I've gone 2-1 as well.
2-1, yeah. I think I do agree with you, though. It's not going to be a walk in the park by far. It's going to be a hard game. But listen, Dan, thank you very much, bro, for coming on. Really enjoyed talking to you. Learned a lot, as usual, talking to guys like yourself. Appreciate your input and your comments and your contributions, man. Lovely. What are you going to be up to this weekend? You going to the game? Or?
Be going to the game, yeah, and then be on the channel, Football's 12th Man podcast. If you can come check me out, people, that'd be amazing. Come subscribe. I'm on way to 10K now as my next target.
Oh, excellent. So, well done for that, bro.
Appreciate that. And so I'll be doing that, working on that, and looking forward to the football at the weekend, man. Definitely. And just praying that Everton can do something. I mean, that's what I'm doing every week now, praying whoever Man City you got can do something.
Absolutely. Thanks again, bro.
Nice one.
Thanks to everybody for watching and supporting the live show today. Keep it locked on AFTV. Don't forget, we got a watch along coming this weekend. Arsenal at home to Brighton, 4:30. We'll be on the air from early in the day when we do our Start 11 show. Then we go on to do the watch along, obviously, for the game. Keep it locked on AFTV. Keep liking, sharing, subscribing. Keep supporting. See you soon. We're out.